Time doesn't care about your excuses. It moves whether you're ready or not. And most people, they're burning through their days like they have an infinite supply. But you don't. Nobody does. Every moment you waste is a piece of your life you'll never get back. And the tragedy isn't that time runs out. The tragedy is that most people realize it too late. You feel it, don't you? That nagging sense that you're moving but not progressing, that you're busy but not productive, that you're alive but not truly living. You wake up, go through the motions, fill your calendar with things that don't matter, and collapse into bed wondering why you feel so empty. Days turn into weeks, weeks into years, and suddenly you look back and can't account for where it all went. You traded hours for distractions, days for comfort, years for the approval of people who don't even remember your name. The pain of wasted time cuts deeper than any physical wound, because you can heal a broken bone, but you can't recover a wasted decade. You can rebuild a business, but you can't rebuild yesterday. Time is the one currency you can never earn back, and most people spend it like it's worthless. They give their best hours to things that don't align with their purpose. They invest energy in relationships that drain them. They chase goals that were never theirs to begin with. And when the noise finally quiets down, they're left staring at a life they don't recognize. You weren't designed for aimless wandering. You weren't created to drift through existence hoping something good happens to you. You were built with precision, with intention, with a specific assignment embedded in your DNA. But somewhere along the way, you started listening to voices that told you to fit in, to be realistic, to stop dreaming so big. And you adjusted. You dimmed your light. You shrunk your vision. You started living someone else's version of success while your own destiny gathered dust. Let me tell you something about lions. A lion cub doesn't become the king of the jungle by accident. It doesn't wake up one day and suddenly know how to hunt. There's a process, a season of watching, learning, developing instinct. The mother teaches, the father demonstrates, the cub stumbles, falls, gets back up. And through repetition, through failure, through persistence, the identity awakens, the roar develops, the confidence builds. But here's what most people miss. During that learning phase, the cub isn't wasting time, it's investing time. Every failed pounce is data. Every correction is progress. The difference between a wasted moment and an invested moment isn't what you're doing, it's whether what you're doing aligns with who you're becoming. You've been treating your life like a rough draft when it's the only copy you get. You've been postponing decisions that need to be made today. You've been saying someday when someday isn't on the calendar. And meanwhile, your potential sits locked inside you, begging for permission to emerge. But you won't give it permission because you're too busy being distracted, too busy scrolling, too busy comparing, too busy numbing yourself with entertainment that adds nothing to who you are. Every manufacturer knows something the product doesn't, what it was made for. A plane doesn't decide to become a boat. A hammer doesn't try to function as a screwdriver. They fulfill their design without question. But you question everything. You second guess your instincts. You ignore the pull toward your purpose because someone told you it wasn't practical. And so you end up living a practical life that feels completely impractical to your soul. You end up safe, comfortable, and miserable. The seed doesn't see the soil as a prison. It sees it as preparation. Buried in darkness, crushed by weight, surrounded by what looks like death, the seed doesn't panic. It doesn't complain about being underground. It knows something you've forgotten. Pressure is part of the process. Darkness is where roots form, and you can't grow upward until you've grown downward first. But you've been resisting the process. You've been fighting the pressure. You've been calling it suffering when it's actually strengthening. And because you won't embrace the season you're in, you keep wasting the lessons it's trying to teach you. There was a craftsman who spent 3 months sharpening a single blade. People mocked him, called him obsessive, told him he was wasting time when he could be making dozens of average blades instead. But he ignored them. He kept sharpening, kept refining, kept perfecting. And when he finally finished, that blade cut through material no other blade could touch. It lasted decades, while others broke in weeks. The time he spent wasn't wasted, it was invested. And the return on that investment was mastery. But you've been rushing, cutting corners, looking for shortcuts, trying to microwave a process that requires an oven. And you wonder why nothing you build lasts, why your relationships fall apart, why your projects fizzle out, why your passion fades. Because you never invested the time to sharpen yourself. You never sat still long enough to let the real work happen inside you. You've been so obsessed with doing more that you forgot to become more. Rejection taught you to doubt yourself when it should have taught you to trust yourself more. Every door that closed wasn't a statement about your worth. It was protection from a path that wasn't yours. Every person who walked away wasn't abandoning you. They were clearing space for the right people to enter. Every failure wasn't evidence that you're not good enough. It was feedback showing you what needs adjustment. But you internalized the rejection as identity instead of instruction. And now you're living small because you believed a lie about who you are. You're so afraid of being alone that you've surrounded yourself with people who don't understand you. You're so terrified of silence that you've filled every quiet moment with noise. But let me tell you about forests. The tallest trees don't grow in crowds. They grow in space with room to expand, room to stretch, room to develop root systems strong enough to weather storms. Your season of isolation isn't punishment, it's preparation. God isn't ignoring you, He's developing you. And the reason you feel alone is because you're being separated from everything that would contaminate your purpose. You keep waiting for permission to start, permission to change, permission to walk away from what's comfortable, but nobody's coming to give you permission. No authority figure is going to validate your dreams. No crowd is going to cheer you into your destiny. You have to give yourself permission. You have to say enough is enough. You have to draw the line between who you were and who you're becoming. And that moment, that decision, that's where your life actually begins. Before I continue, answer one question honestly. If your life ended today, would you be proud of how you spent your time? Would the hours you invested reflect what you claim to value? Or would there be a gap between what you say matters and how you actually lived? Because the truth always shows up in your schedule. Your calendar doesn't lie. Your bank account doesn't lie. Your relationships don't lie. They reveal what you actually prioritize, not what you pretend to prioritize. If you're still listening, something inside you is waking up. Something is stirring, and it's not going to let you go back to sleep. Direction is more important than speed. You can be moving fast and still be headed toward the wrong destination. You can be busy every single day and still be building the wrong life. Most people never stop to ask if they're on the right path. They just keep walking because everyone else is walking. They follow the crowd into careers that don't fulfill them, relationships that don't honor them, lifestyles that don't align with their values. And they call it success because it looks successful on the outside, but inside, they're dying. Slowly, quietly, desperately. There's a difference between good and right. Good feels safe. Right feels risky. Good is what everyone expects. Right is what you were created for. And most people choose good over right because good doesn't require courage. It doesn't demand sacrifice. It doesn't ask you to stand alone. But here's the cost. You can spend your entire life doing good things and completely miss the right thing. You can be a good employee in the wrong company, a good partner in the wrong relationship, a good person living the wrong life. And when it's all over, you won't be judged by how good you were. You'll be measured by whether you did what only you could do. The potter doesn't apologize to the clay for the pressure. He knows something the clay doesn't. The shape requires resistance. The beauty requires heat. The strength requires fire. And you've been praying for the pressure to stop when the pressure is precisely what's forming you. You've been begging for ease when ease would leave you weak. You've been asking why this is happening when you should be asking what this is building. Imagine a lion cub that refused to learn, that rejected every lesson, that avoided every challenge. It would never develop the instincts required to survive. It would remain dependent, weak, vulnerable, and eventually it would die, not because it lacked potential, but because it refused to activate that potential. You have instincts you've been ignoring, gifts you've been suppressing, abilities you've been downplaying. And the reason you feel stuck isn't because you lack what you need, it's because you won't use what you have. Time will expose everything. It will reveal whether you were serious or just emotional, whether you were committed or just interested, whether you were building or just talking about building. And the brutal truth is that most people are just talking. They have plans they never execute, dreams they never pursue, ideas they never test. They spend more time explaining why it won't work than trying to make it work, and years later, they're still in the same place, wondering why life passed them by. You grow in silence. You heal in silence. You rise in silence. The noisiest seasons of your life will produce the least growth, because real transformation doesn't happen on stage. It happens in the hidden place, in the early morning, in the late night, in the moments nobody sees, in the decisions nobody applauds. That's where character forms. That's where vision clarifies. That's where strength builds. But you've been so addicted to attention that you announce every move before you make it. And the announcement costs you the energy you needed for the execution. Your emptiness isn't random. It's a signal. It's your soul telling you that what you're pursuing isn't what you were designed to pursue. You can't fill a God-shaped void with human applause. You can't satisfy a purpose-driven heart with comfort and convenience. You can't numb the ache of misalignment with distractions. The emptiness will follow you until you finally stop running and face it, until you ask the hard questions, until you admit that you've been living for the wrong things. There's a voice inside you that keeps whispering, reminding you of what you used to dream about, pulling you towards something bigger, refusing to let you settle. And you've been trying to silence that voice because listening to it would require change. It would mean disappointing people, walking away from security, starting over. And you've convinced yourself that staying is easier. But staying isn't easier, it's just slower death. And every day you ignore that voice, you lose a little more of yourself. The manufacturer doesn't send the product into the world without instructions. There's a manual, a blueprint, a design, and you have one too. It's written in your desires, your abilities, your experiences. Everything you've been through was preparing you for something, teaching you, shaping you, building capacity. But you've been so focused on surviving that you haven't stopped to ask what you're being prepared for. You've been so busy reacting to life that you haven't taken time to design your life. Wasted time isn't just about what you didn't do. It's about what you did do that didn't matter. The hours you gave to people who didn't value you. The energy you spent on projects that went nowhere. The years you invested in building someone else's dream while yours suffocated. And you can't get those years back. But you can decide that from this moment forward, every hour counts. Every day has intention. Every decision aligns with your purpose. Let me tell you about a seed that refused to stay buried. It pushed through soil that tried to hold it down. It broke through rocks that tried to block it. It stretched toward light it couldn't yet see. And when it finally emerged, it didn't look like much, just a fragile sprout. But that sprout had already proven something. It was stronger than its environment. And you are too. Every obstacle you faced was testing whether you had what it takes. And the fact that you're still here means you passed. The fact that you're still fighting means you're stronger than what tried to break you. Healing doesn't mean forgetting what hurt you. It means refusing to let what hurt you define you. It means taking the pain and turning it into purpose, the betrayal and turning it into boundaries, the rejection and turning it into redirection. You've been carrying wounds like identity when they're supposed to be lessons. And until you extract the lesson, the wound will keep reopening. Until you forgive, you'll keep reliving. Until you release, you'll keep repeating. You weren't designed to blend in. You were designed to stand out. But standing out requires you to stop apologizing for who you are. Stop shrinking to make others comfortable. Stop hiding your gifts because someone felt threatened. The world doesn't need another copy. It needs the original. And you are the only you that will ever exist. Your perspective is unique. Your voice is necessary. Your contribution is irreplaceable. But you'll never make that contribution if you keep trying to be someone else. There was a moment when everything changed. Not because circumstances improved, but because perspective shifted. The person stopped asking, why is this happening to me? And started asking, what is this teaching me? They stopped seeing obstacles as enemies and started seeing them as opportunities. They stopped treating setbacks as failures and started treating them as setups. And that shift, that mental pivot, transformed everything because the situation hadn't changed. They had changed. And when you change, everything changes. Fear has been running your life. Not the big dramatic fears, but the small subtle ones. Fear of what people think. Fear of making the wrong choice. Fear of wasting time on something that doesn't work out. So you've been playing it safe. Staying small, avoiding risk. And you call it wisdom, and it's really just fear dressed in reasonable clothing. But wisdom doesn't avoid risk. It calculates risk. It weighs options. It moves forward despite uncertainty. And until you confront the fear that's been holding you hostage, you'll keep living beneath your potential. Your purpose isn't hiding. You are. You've been hiding behind excuses, behind obligations, behind other people's expectations. You've been hiding behind, I'm not ready yet, and maybe someday, and I don't have what it takes. But the truth is, you'll never feel ready. You'll never have perfect timing. You'll never have all the resources. And if you wait until you feel prepared, you'll wait forever. Because preparation doesn't come before obedience. It comes during obedience. You learn by doing. You grow by moving. You discover your strength by using it. The seasons of your life aren't accidents. Winter isn't punishment. It's preparation. The trees that go bare in winter aren't dying. They're conserving energy, redirecting resources to the roots, getting ready for spring and your winter season. The one you've been resenting is doing the same thing. It's stripping away what's unnecessary, teaching you what matters, building strength beneath the surface. But you've been so focused on what you lost that you haven't noticed what you're gaining. You've been measuring success by the wrong metrics. Applause doesn't equal impact. Visibility doesn't equal value. Numbers don't equal purpose. You can have 1 million followers and 0 fulfillment. You can be famous and still be lost. You can look successful and feel empty. Because real success isn't external, it's internal. It's the peace that comes from knowing you're in alignment, the joy that comes from living authentically, the satisfaction that comes from using your gifts the way they were meant to be used. Every moment you spend complaining about where you are is a moment you could spend building where you're going. Every hour you waste being bitter about the past is an hour stolen from creating your future. And I know it's hard. I know it hurts. I know you didn't ask for the pain you've been carrying. But at some point, you have to decide that your future matters more than your past, that your purpose matters more than your pain, that who you're becoming matters more than who you were. There's a version of you that already exists, not in some distant future, but right now. It exists in potential form, in seed form, in blueprint form. And every choice you make either activates that version or delays it. Every decision either aligns with that version or contradicts it. You're not trying to become someone new. You're trying to become who you already are beneath the layers of fear, doubt, and compromise. And the process of becoming isn't addition, it's subtraction. It's removing what doesn't belong, shedding what isn't you, walking away from what's no longer aligned. Time is trying to teach you something. It's showing you that tomorrow isn't guaranteed, that opportunities have expiration dates, that people don't wait forever, that your potential has a shelf life. And the lesson isn't to panic, it's to prioritize, to stop treating important things like they're optional, to stop postponing conversations that need to happen, to stop delaying decisions that need to be made. Because one day, the door you've been avoiding will close, and all the "I'll do it later" statements will turn into regrets. You've been expecting someone to come save you, to hand you the opportunity, to recognize your talent, to open the door, but that's not how it works. Nobody's coming. You have to save yourself. You have to create the opportunity. You have to open your own doors. And yes, it's harder that way. Yes, it requires more faith, more work, more risk. But it also means you're not dependent on someone else's permission. You're not waiting for validation. You're not gambling your destiny on whether someone notices you. You're taking responsibility for your own life. And that's where power lives. Let me tell you about a person who was lost. Not geographically, but spiritually. They had everything society said mattered and nothing their soul actually needed. They woke up successful and went to bed empty. They smiled in public and cried in private. They achieved goals that meant nothing. And one day, in a moment of complete breakdown, they asked a question that changed everything. What am I doing this for? Not who. Not when, not how, but for what purpose? And that question unraveled everything false and revealed everything true. It exposed the misalignment, the disconnect, the wasted energy. And from that moment of clarity, they started over. Not from scratch, but from truth. And the life they built after that question was unrecognizable compared to the life they had before. Your identity isn't what you do, it's who you are beneath what you do. And most people never discover their identity because they're too busy performing, playing roles, meeting expectations, wearing masks. They show up as who people want them to be instead of who they actually are. And the cost of that performance is exhaustion, because it takes enormous energy to be someone you're not. It drains you, depletes you, disconnects you from yourself, and eventually you can't even remember who you were before you started pretending. The moments you thought were endings were actually redirections. The failures were course corrections. The rejections were protection. The delays were preparation. But you couldn't see it at the time because you were too close to the pain, too deep in the disappointment, too hurt to recognize the gift hidden in the wound. But now, looking back, you can see it. You can see how everything that fell apart made room for what needed to come together. How every loss positioned you for a greater gain. How every detour led you exactly where you needed to be. You've been living in survival mode so long you forgot how to dream. You've been so focused on making it through the day that you stopped planning for the future. You've been so consumed with problems that you lost sight of possibilities. And survival is necessary sometimes. But it's not a lifestyle. It's a season. And if you're not careful, you'll get stuck there. You'll normalize struggle, accept limitation, settle for less, and call it maturity when it's really just surrender. Stop waiting for perfect conditions. Stop waiting to feel inspired. Stop waiting until you're not afraid, because those conditions aren't coming. Life doesn't wait for you to be ready. It moves while you're hesitating. And the gap between who you are and who you could be isn't ability, it's action, it's decision, it's the willingness to start before you're ready, to move before you're certain, to step out before you can see the full path. That's faith. And faith doesn't eliminate fear, it acts despite fear. You know what you need to do. Deep down, beneath the excuses and the rationalizations and the fear, you know. You've known for a while, maybe years. And you've been avoiding it because doing it would cost you something. Comfort, security, approval. And you've been weighing the cost without considering the greater cost of not doing it. The cost of regret. The cost of unfulfilled potential. The cost of dying with your music still inside you. The climax of your life isn't a single moment. It's a series of choices, small decisions that compound, quiet commitments that accumulate, daily disciplines that define you. And you're right in that climax right now with how you spend today, with what you prioritize this week, with the patterns you're forming this month. You're either building towards something or drifting away from something. There's no neutral, there's no pause. You're always moving in one direction or the other. And the direction you're moving right now is creating the life you'll be living 5 years from now. Your gifts weren't given to you for you. They were given to you through you for others, for impact, for contribution. And every day you suppress them, you're not just limiting yourself, you're limiting everyone who needs what you carry. Someone is waiting for the book you won't write, the business you won't start, the message you won't share, the leadership you won't step into. And they're waiting because you're hesitating, because you're doubting, because you're playing small. And their breakthrough is connected to your obedience. This is your moment. Not tomorrow, not when conditions improve, not when you feel more ready. Right now, this moment, this day, this is where your story shifts. Where excuses die, where potential awakens, where destiny activates, and it starts with a decision. One clear, firm, non-negotiable decision that you're done wasting time, done living small, done waiting for permission, done accepting less than what you were created for. That decision is the hinge everything turns on, and you're the only one who can make it. Your life is too valuable to waste on things that don't matter. Your time is too precious to give to people who don't value it. Your gifts are too significant to hide behind fear. And your purpose is too important to postpone. You were born for such a time as this, not by accident, not by chance, but by divine design. And everything you've been through, every battle you've fought, every lesson you've learned has been preparing you for what's next. But what's next requires you to let go of what was, to release what's comfortable, to walk away from what's familiar and step into what's possible. The world doesn't need more people playing it safe. It needs people who are willing to risk everything for what they believe in, who are willing to stand alone if necessary, who are willing to be misunderstood in the short term, to be remembered in the long term. And that's who you're becoming. Not someone who follows the crowd, but someone who leads. Not someone who waits for the path to be clear, but someone who clears the path. Not someone who asks for permission, but someone who gives themselves permission and then shows others what's possible. If this message spoke to your heart, share it with someone who needs hope today. And if you want more messages that grow your soul, subscribe, because your journey has just begun.